field operators, and it will not deviate too much from the existing rental levels.
Government bills. This Council resumes the second reading debate on the Social Workers Registration Amendments Bill 2024. Mr. Gary Chen, Chairman of the Bills Committee on the bill, will first address the Council on the committee's report. Mr. Gary Chen. Thank you, President. As the Chairman of the Bills Committee on Social Workers Registration Amendments Bill 2024, I now report the salient points of the Bills Committee's deliberation. The purpose of the bill is to improve the governance of the Social Workers Registration Board, so that in performing its statutory functions, the board can more effectively safeguard the interests of the clients and the community as a whole, and maintain the credibility of the social work profession and promote its long-term development. Members have noted that certain incidents demonstrate the failure of the board to act in the public interest in performing its functions, arousing concerns from various sectors. Before the first meeting was held, the Bills Committee received over 60 submissions in support of the bill from members of the public, social welfare organizations, members of the social welfare sector, and groups from other sectors on their own initiatives. Members acknowledge the need to expeditiously improve the governance of the board. Subsequently, 3 meetings have been held in a week's time to complete the scrutiny work of the bill. Members agree that the bill will bring in a broader and more balanced participation in the board, ensure that it acts in the public interest, and promote the long-term development of the social work profession. On the basis of the administration's legislative proposal, members put forward 3 major suggestions to further enhance the board's governance and safeguard national security more effectively. First, members have in general expressed concern that the bill has not changed the current practice where the members of the board elect from among the number a chairperson and a deputy chairperson. Members pointed out that the chairperson of the board shoulders the duties of supervising the work of the board and presiding at its meetings, and the deputy chairperson shall act as chairperson if the chairperson is absent from Hong Kong or is for any other reason unable to act as a chairperson. To ensure that the board performs its statutory functions in a fair and impartial manner, its chairperson and deputy chairperson should be appointed by the chief executive. Second, in relation to the requirement that board members must take an oath to uphold basic law and bear allegiance to the Hong Kong SAR, the proposal only required the written oath to be made and signed before a commissioner for oaths, justice of the peace, or a solicitor with a practicing certificate. Members are of the view that a written oath will make it difficult for the Secretary for Labour and Welfare to ascertain whether the oath taker has intentionally desecrated the oath-taking ceremony or intentionally altered or distorted the wording of the oath, and whether the oath taker genuinely and truthfully intends to uphold the basic law and bear allegiance to the Hong Kong SAR. Members have suggested that for a person who is to take up or is currently holding the office of a member of the board, the oath must be made before the Secretary. Third, a mechanism is proposed under the bill to ensure that the names of registered social workers convicted of certain offences will be removed from the register promptly. The existing provisions of the bill state that a person convicted of an offence endangering national security can be registered as a registered social worker on an exceptional basis if all members of the board so resolve. By the same token, a person convicted of a national security offence may keep the registration if all members of the board so resolve. Members have taken the strong view that registered social workers have the trust of the clients and have a significant impact on them. Therefore, it is of great importance to the clients that social workers have the right values to safeguard national security. In the cases above, it will be difficult to protect the interests of the clients and the community as a whole. Members have unanimously agreed that stricter rules should be made for persons convicted of offences endangering national security to make sure that they can never be registered as registered social workers. Having considered the three suggestions made by the Bill's Committee, the administration will move amendments to the bill accordingly. Besides, members support the additional function proposed for the board in relation to continuing professional development of registered social workers. Failure to meet the requirements within a period specified by the board may result in rejection of renewal application. Members have acknowledged the need to require registered social workers to practice continuing professional development so as to ensure that the social work profession can meet the changing service needs of the community. However, members are concerned that the legislative proposal does not prescribe an implementation timetable for the requirements. According to the administration, the content, approach, and timetable of the future continuing professional development requirements of registered social workers will be devised by the board, the majority of its members being registered social workers. It is believed that the reconstituted board will certainly strike a balance among factors such as the sector's manpower, workload, and professional development need in taking forward the work on this front in a pragmatic and orderly manner with a view to promoting the long-term development of the social work profession. Members are of the view that the Code of Practice for Registered Social Workers approved and issued by the board should include elements of safeguarding national security, and that more explanatory work should be conducted for the benefits of stakeholders. The administration has advised that if the bill is passed, the board will be required to include elements relating to safeguarding national security in the Code of Practice. The administration will also step up its efforts to explain how the amended ordinance will benefit the long-term development of the social work profession. President, the bill has the full support of the Bills Committee. There is no objection against the amendments to be moved by the administration. President, the above is my report on the Bills Committee's work. In the following, I will state my personal opinions on the bill. I support the amendments to the ordinance. As the chairman of the Bills Committee, I am grateful to the administration, the Electoral Secretariat, the Deputy Chairperson, and the members. Now, since the incidents about the failure of the board were discovered, the government proposed a reform plan, and then the Bills Committee completed scrutiny of the bill. In the entire process, the community, the executive branch of the government, and the legislative branch of the government have come to a consensus. We respected each other's opinions. The consensus is that we need to amend the law to rectify certain situations in the social work profession to put the board on the right path. I think the amendments are necessary. They will bring about long-term benefits for the profession. By the end of 2023, after a vote held by the board, the requirements for continuing professional development were waived. It halted the developments of the social work profession. As social workers, the professionals must continue to enhance the knowledge to keep up with time. The amendments also adjusted the constitution of the board. It is for ensuring that different voices are heard in the board. This is beneficial for the board's decision-making process in terms of the decisions made by the board and training decisions. Different voices will be considered for the interests of the community as a whole. Now, there is also the new oath-taking requirements for board members to ensure that they will uphold the basic law and bear allegiance to the HKSAR. Now, this, as a statutory body, this is the red line we have to draw. We have to ensure that all members of the board are loyal to the Hong Kong SAR and the public. And also, the escape clause involving offences endangering national security will be removed. National security offences are not just any other offences. This has an impact on the security of the country and Hong Kong. Now, by removing the escape clause, we can prevent persons convicted of national security offences from being registered as social workers again. President, I think the amendments demonstrate the determination of the government to uphold integrity in Hong Kong. Now, with this opportunity, we hope that the profession can embark on a new path and return to a professional approach. Now, with the professional attitude, the profession can gain the trust and confidence of the public again. Based on the above reasons, I support the Amendments Bill 2024. Thank you.
Professor Priscilla Leung. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024. As a social worker in Hong Kong, this profession is actually quite respected. I remember when I was in secondary school, I watched this movie North Star, and I also had the dream of becoming a social worker. Social workers play a very important role in Hong Kong. They can support those underprivileged and can help them support their needs. In recent years, however, especially from 2014 to 2019 and the years after that, I've seen some social workers who kept a very high profile, showing they are social workers, yet their social behavior leaves me very disappointed. At schools, we practice a one school, one social worker principle. I know that schools really need social workers. Young people really need the support of social workers. However, we found a lot of black sheep amongst the social workers, and I did not support the idea of one school, one social worker. Those who seek help are those who are most vulnerable, and they would share their inner thoughts with social workers. Some of the social workers were very radical at that time, and many showed hatred to our country, which made me very worried. I am in support of the amendment bill because we've added in new sections. For example, in 4B, it said that the members or social workers would need to take an oath. This is responsibility. So it's much like legislative counselors. You cannot reject or refuse to take oath. As a member of the registration board, you must uphold the basic law and bear allegiance to the SAR government. So that's a very basic requirement. In the past, nobody felt that it was an issue, and so nobody thought about it. But then, now, all statutory organizations must practice this oath, especially for chairman and deputy chairmen. Anyone who is appointed to such a position must do that, and we must ensure that we would not be criticized by members of the public for not doing that. The board is responsible for regulating all the social workers. I have many social worker friends, and I really respect this profession. We really need social workers. With the amendment of the bill, we will be able to improve ourselves. I think that the government should allow flexibility for social workers, but they should not allow such people to practice hatred to our country and to show subversion to our country. I told my social worker friends that as long as we are working as the Northern Star, whether it be resources or other formats, we are willing to provide full support. I hope that we can all be united to realize the aim of achieving this Northern Star. I know that our social workers in Hong Kong really love our country, love our homeland. I'm sure that they're all willing to do that. I so submit and support the bill. Mr. Stanley Lee. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024. In recent years, this has set off a very heated debate in the community, and I see online that there are so-called overseas Hong Kong social workers who are opposing to our amendment. I have different views for these people. Well, after careful consideration, I have some personal views on this amendment bill. Some people are worried that there would be less professional autonomy after the amendment. These are all one-sided and very misleading. The expansion of the membership of the board does not mean that it would actually undermine autonomy. We want democracy, and at the same time, we hope to see professionalism. Otherwise, it wouldn't really demonstrate the long-term benefits of social workers. Some people were worried that through voting, you would only vote for a chairman that is respected in society yet does not understand this profession. The government, however, will look at the profession of the person before and his or her experience before appointing this person to chair, and this can ensure the quality of the board so as to better provide for the long-term development of social workers. And some people do not have a strong understanding of the profession of social workers. Social workers can help support the vulnerable, the underprivileged, and can help us strike a balance with setting stability and prosperity. We are looking for harmony and stability for all people. I'm sure that the amendment from the amendments proposed by the government is to ensure that our society will continue to prosper, and this has nothing to do with politics. We should not take a political view on the amendments. We must actually be reasonable in supporting the government's amendments. So once the board is reconstituted and with allegiance to the basic law, it can actually ensure that social workers will be able to comply with Article 23 of the Basic Law. And for those who are convicted of serious offenses to continue with membership, I believe that this should be done as soon as possible to ensure that we'll be able to ensure quality provided to the clients. We want to ensure we uphold the professionalism of the sector. For social workers who have been convicted of offenses, they would of course not be trustworthy to the public, even though the existing mechanism was able to suspend certain workers. We should actually change with the times and remove those social workers in an expeditious manner. We do not to worry too much because the amendments are fair and not targeting any particular group of social workers. As for concern on continuous professional development, that is actually a prerequisite. CPD requirements are to ensure that the social workers are equipped with the most updated skills and knowledge, and that could help in upholding their professionalism. We would consider social workers' views on that. However, we should be positive and proactive and think that by CPD requirements will be able to meet the changing service needs of the community. We must ensure that we put members of the public and the needs of the community first, and to enhance the professional manner of the social workers. President, requiring social workers to take oath is because social workers are responsible to the public, and taking oath would be in the interest of the public. Social workers provide assistance and support to those needy, and taking oath would just help them understand better their basic responsibilities and their duties. The existing board we have already seen a few social workers who have committed offenses remaining on the board, and that actually is detrimental to the integrity of the board. I have also proposed that there should be face-to-face oath-taking by a board member, as that would of course further enhance their responsibility. This is a very solemn oath. Lastly, in the view that there is actually that the amendment will actually undermine the professionalism and professional autonomy, that is all misleading as well, because now there would be better protection for the social workers, and they will be able to safeguard the needs of the people. Social workers, under the protection of a strong mechanism, will be able to fight for better rights. Some people think that they might accidentally step on the red line. That is because of the inadequacies of the existing bill. The amendment this time will be able to plug any previous loopholes. In the past, without such amendments, we have seen social workers violating their profession. I'm sure that we are able to amend these this time to enhance the professionalism of social workers, and social workers would be better protected. This is a necessary and reasonable amendment in the interest of members of the public. Well, once we have set up a bills committee to study the bill, we have received many submissions with both pros and cons, with the majority of those supporting the bill. So I hope that you would all possess an open mind in reading this amendment bill. We hope that we'll be able to work together to enhance the development of social workers. I am a student in this profession. I myself respect very much this bill. Only by these amendments can we really see a better future for social Workers Registration Board. I so submit supporting the amendment bill. Thank you.
Dr. Chairman Kong, Deputy President, today we are resuming second reading debate of the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024. It is for enhancing the governance of the Social Workers Registration Board to ensure that the board acts in public interest and to ensure that the social work profession can develop in an orderly manner. Now, the board is established under the Social Workers Registration Ordinance. It is a body with a public function. Now, there has long been controversy over the integrity of the board. We can't sit idling, so I support the bill. There are 3 suggestions concerning reconstituting the board, the oath-taking requirements, and also the offense on endangering national security. I will speak on these 3 points. Now, we need to uphold the professionalism of the social work profession and ensure that the trade is working in alignment with the interests of the community. We have to prevent soft and hard resistance, which endangers national security. Now, under the existing board, only 6 members are appointed by the CE. 8 members are elected among themselves. There has been a lot of unfair instances, so we need to reform the board. Now, the explicit function of the board is to issue license and monitor the quality of the social work profession. It doesn't have the function to regulate the profession or decide on subsidies allocation. However, most social workers are working with subvented organizations. Every year, the government is allocating more than $20 billion in subvention for these organizations. From offering services to clients and paying the salary of social workers they hired, they rely on government subvention, and that is public money. The board can't make decisions based on its own preference, so it is natural for the government to appoint more public officers to be board members. Now, among the 27 members under the revamped constitution, 17 will be appointed by the government, and among them 5 will be registered social workers and 8 will be elected among themselves, and there is also 1 public officer who is in a RSW. Now, after the revamp, the board will still comprise mainly of RSWs. Now, by including more voices in the board, it is in alignment with the international practice, and it can serve its monitoring role better. Now, concerning the immediate registration removal mechanism, there are criticisms that it is for disentitling rehabilitating person from joining the trade. It is not true. If the social workers are not doing the right things themselves, how can you expect them to help the community? Now, the bill provides for the board to remove the names of persons convicted of certain offences from the register. The offences are offences endangering national security and also ill treatment of a child, rape, indecent assault, murder, manslaughter, and so on. So this is just the same as other industries like the teaching profession and the healthcare profession. Persons convicted of these offences would be fired immediately. This is important for upholding the repute of the reputation of the social work profession. And also, board members must sign a written oath in accordance with the specified formats to pledge allegiance to the Hong Kong SAR and upholding the basic law. The form must be returned to the secretary within a specified time. Otherwise, they cannot take office or continue to hold office of board members. Now, in 2021, the entire civil service has pledged allegiance to the Hong Kong SAR and uphold the basic law. And then there were lots of calls for similar oath-taking arrangements to be implemented for other substandard organizations to ensure that the behavior of the members of these professions or bodies are regulated. I believe various bureaus and departments, for example, the Education Bureau, should conduct a review on whether the stakeholders in their profession should follow this arrangement. I also submit and support the third reading of the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024. Ms. Eunice Yong, Deputy President, I speak in support of the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024 and the amendments. This is a piece of milestone legislation. It is important for further enhancing the social workers registration system in Hong Kong, enhancing clients' welfare, and improving the quality of the trade. The social work profession is a very noble profession, and it is also very challenging. Social workers have been working diligently to provide adequate services to the underprivileged in society, from childcare to adolescence counseling and family support. The social work profession can be seen everywhere. Now we applaud the social work profession, which has been upholding the highest standard in serving society. However, as mentioned by the administration, several incidents have occurred within the board. We understand that there are challenges within the board, and we thank the governments for providing us with the information that we need to scrutinize the bill. Now, we appreciate the establishment of a regulatory regime to ensure that the quality of the trade can be upheld and public interest is served. This is the spirit of the bill. The government has shown determination in amending the law. The constitution of the board has been reformed. I support the changes. Now, under the existing board, there were 15 members, 8 were elected among each other. Now 7 of them have resigned. Only 1 continued to hold office. Now, if the government hadn't proposed legislative amendments, one can imagine how dire the situation will be. So I agree that the chairperson and the deputy chairperson should be appointed by the government. This can enhance the authority of the board, and also capable persons who are familiar with the trade and who are reputable can be appointed to lead the board's work. This is also the practice in other statutory bodies. It will enhance the efficiency and the authority of the board. On the oath-taking requirements for board members, the oath must be made before the Secretary for Labour and Welfare or a person he authorizes. Board members must uphold the basic law and bear allegiance to the HKSAR. This is only natural. And thank the administration for accepting our suggestion on requiring in-person oath-making. Now, board members will be required to make the oath in person in front of the Secretary. This shows the commitment of the board members. I believe with the new requirements, a reconstituted board will receive the support of society as a whole. Concerning offences endangering national security, under the existing legislation, there is the Schedule 2, and now the offences endangering national security have been added to Schedule 2. I thank the administration for accepting our views on removing the escape clause. Now, for social workers who have been convicted of offence endangering national security law, they will be removed from the register permanently. If we allow social workers who have endangered national security to remain in the trade, it will undermine the services for their clients and also the confidence of society in the social work profession. Social workers have the duty to uphold national security and the country's development interest. This is a commitment shared by social workers. So we need to draw a clear line from national security offences, and we need to uphold the reputation of the social work profession. Now, the administration has taken heed of various views while balancing the progress of the trade and the establishment of an effective regulatory system. This is beneficial for the long-term development of the trade. On continuing professional development, I support the amendments because it is vital in ensuring the continuous healthy development of the trade. After the passage of the bill, I hope that the social work profession can continue to enhance its service quality and respond to society's needs. And using this opportunity, social workers should continue to improve themselves and build an inclusive society.
Mr. Lam Chun Sing, thank you. Deputy President, social workers are responsible for helping those in need in the community. The Social Worker Registration Board carries out the statutory functions to ensure the quality of work of the registered social workers so as to safeguard the interests of the public and the community as a whole. And yet in recent years, we have been very disappointed in the governance of the board. Earlier, the government published the notice in the social work relating to the Social Worker Registration Ordinance, incorporating offences endangering national security in the ordinance. And yet 2 years on, the board has not followed up on the arrangements. In the long run, it undermines the credibility of the social work profession. The bill proposes to remove immediately the name of a registered social worker convicted of offences endangering national security from the register. And yet, the decision whether to remove the name of an RSW who has been convicted of an offence endangering national security will be made on the basis of the board, and that there is no mechanism to kickstart prompt removal of the name. According to a former social worker a board member. Now, if the RSW commits a serious offense, it's likely that this person will be imprisoned, and as a result, if this RSW will not be able to do anything that will undermine the interests of society. So there is no need to kickstart this mechanism. And of course, we believe that every former offender should be given a chance to rehabilitate themselves. An expeditious mechanism should be established to deal with these cases. There is also a proposal for the board to take up the function of requiring CPD of RSWs. I am all for this proposal. For different professions, there are statutory CPD requirements. These professionals may be required to complete certain hours of continuing professional development within a certain period of time. So this is not something new. In many countries such as US, Canada, Australia, etc., there are mandatory requirements of CPD on the social work profession as well. In Hong Kong, we have been discussing CPD requirements for the social work profession for many years. And yet, last year, the voluntary CPD for RSWs was suspended, and there is an impasse. Now, the reconstituted board will be responsible for drawing up a framework for CPD requirements for social workers. I look forward to this arrangement. Apart from providing training of social work to the candidates, they should also provide training on the core values, so on and so forth, so that, and also past activities and training courses should also be should also serve as reference. Previous points accumulated could also be transferred, so that the profession can decide on the most suitable way to take forward CPD. Now, it's part of the social workers' training to care for the community, especially the underprivileged. It's just natural for social workers to fulfill their duty in this regard. I understand that there are voices saying that upon passage of the amendment bill, social workers will not be able to fight the corners for the underprivileged. I don't see why there should be any conflict between helping the underprivileged and the amendment bill. In fact, I worked with many social workers, social workers also help the underprivileged, the scavengers, etc. Now, the purpose of the amendment bill is to enhance governance of the board and to rationalize the dealing of cases involving RSWs convicted of serious offenses. Social workers are concerned about social injustice and helping the underprivileged, but even so, they need to fight the corner of the underprivileged without breaching the law. For example, I often tell my labor union partners that they need to fight the corner of the labor sector, but at the same time, they need to properly fulfill their work duties. And only by doing so would they have the recognition of fellow workers, employees, and the community as a whole. I believe that upon passage of the bill, social workers will be able to carry out the duties given to them. They can be the bridge between the underprivileged and other sectors of the community to promote the long-term development of the social work profession. I support the bill. I so submit. Mr. Martin Liao. Now, it is the duty of social workers to help those in need in the community. It is only natural for them to do so. And yet, there have been queries about the handling of cases by the board. For example, some social workers have been convicted of very serious offenses such as trafficking of drugs, taking drugs, etc. And yet the board still allows a registration to be renewed. Now, we are concerned about the quality of social work. There is a need to revamp the system so as to safeguard the interests of stakeholders in the community so that we can put the social work profession back on the right track. Now, let's take a look at the record. After the 5th of October 2023, the minutes of the board's meeting have not been updated. That means there is no public scrutiny of the work of the Social Worker Registration Board. And also, the parts of the minutes relating to the personal particulars were redacted such that the public could not get more details about the discussion. Likewise, for cases involving RSWs convicted of serious offenses, the personal particulars were also redacted. In fact, it's the Social Workers Registration Board's function to set standards for the registration and disciplinary matters of the RSWs, so it should play a gatekeeping role, and yet is now kept from the public. There is no way to find out more about the registration of social workers. So this is total disregard to public interest. Take another example. For the IPCC, there is a detailed set of records of all the deliberations and decisions. The same applies to the Medical Council of Hong Kong. Members of the public will have a very clear idea through these minutes and records about the performance of these frontline practitioners. On the contrary, the Social Worker Registration Board is very opaque, and it is not fulfilling its duties. I believe a revamp is necessary. Under the amendment bill, the membership of the board will be expanded to 27, and 17 of them will be appointed. 5 will be RSWs, 8 will be elected, and there will also be 1 representative of the Social Welfare Department as well as 1 public officer who is also a registered social worker. There may be concerns that this amendment bill put forward by the government is an interference to the profession. This argument doesn't hold water. 14 out of the 24 appointed members of the board are registered social workers, so they would represent the profession. At the same time, members from diverse backgrounds and professions will be joining the board so as to bring a more balanced and diverse voice into the board so as to safeguard public interest. This revamp will not undermine the development of the social work profession. On the contrary, it will safeguard public interest and make the profession more credible. The former Secretary for Labour and Welfare immediately published the Social Workers Registration Notice 2022 upon passage of the Hong Kong National Security Law to incorporate offences endangering national security in the schedule of the ordinance. And yet the board, 2 years on, has not taken any action. On the contrary, it still allowed a person convicted of an offence endangering national security to be registered as a social worker. I think this is wrong. Allowing any person who is convicted of an offence endangering national security will not only give rise to a national security risk, but also tarnish the image of the profession. In fact, recently, despite bickering within the board, there was a majority vote in support of an RSW convicted of an offence endangering national security to become a member of the reserve or reserve member of the disciplinary committee Panel, or DCP. I support the amendment bill. I believe the board should be empowered to immediately remove the name of an RSW convicted of such serious offences, so as not to allow the black sheep of the family to tarnish the image of the social work profession. With the social advancements, the social workers should also continue to equip themselves with updated knowledge. Now, according to the Code of Practice for Registered Social Workers should be careful in making judgments on matters concerning new developments, and that there should be training, professional development, consultation, so on and so forth, to make sure that the interests of the profession will not be undermined. In the end of last year, the profession called a halt to the voluntary CPD registration scheme for registered social workers. So it's nothing but backpedaling. The amendment bill will empower the board to carry out another statutory function, and that is the board may reject an application for renewal of registration if an RSW fails to complete the CPD requirements. I believe the CPD requirements will help equip social workers with the up-to-date knowledge and help enhance the credibility of the social work profession. Mr. Christen, Secretary for Labour and Welfare, mentioned in the second reading of the bill that the board should be empowered to draw up a framework on CPD requirements. I support the amendment bill. There are 28,000 registered social workers in Hong Kong at the moment. They help those in need in the community. The board is the gatekeeper of the social work profession, and it is their duty to ensure that the social work can be performed with quality. And during the consultation period, written submissions were received from the public and the profession as well. There is majority support of the amendment bill, and that shows that the shortcomings of the professions are no longer tolerable by the public at large. We should revamp the composition of the board to salvage public confidence. I support the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024 and the amendments.
Mr. Tang Ka-piu. Thank you, Deputy President. The bill will actually help us to regain integrity of the social workers profession. I actually should be the first registered social worker to speak on this. Later on, Su Wei will be the second one. Well, this bill was passed in June 1997, and then later on, the Social Workers Registration Board was established. After many years of practice, well, it's been 27 years, the Social Workers Registration Board has brought 5 disappointments. First of all, it was actually kidnapped by those who endanger national security, because they put aside professional views and they do not work towards the interests of the public. Second disappointment, there was no improvement of the board because they called a halt to CPD being a prerequisite for the renewal of registration. And so many people query about the professionalism of social workers. Well, this card can be renewed by $400 each year. This is the same with many other sectors, such as insurance. They need to take CPD courses to actually to renew their profession. Yet for social workers, you only need to pay $400 and you'll be able to get this RSW card. Yet there are many social welfare organizations asking the government at least hundreds of millions each year to ask for continuing professional education to support the social workers, yet we don't see any of it happening. Third disappointment, the Social Workers Registration Board does not work towards mutual recognition with GBA counterparts. It did not try to help integrate social workers into the GBA. This is a very important trend, and actually many professions and sectors can practice their profession in such a large region, yet social workers do not do that. So there was no such mutual recognition on GBA. And the fourth disappointment, the Social Workers Registration Board did not try to deepen the development of the board, and actually there is no in-depth knowledge of profession. It's just like this card, because you can all hold this card. Even for construction workers, there is a very small division of work, at least 20 to 30 categories. Even for doctors, in the social worker sector, we can see different sectors such as for youth, for elderly, for rehabilitation, for protection of children, mental health, social innovation, social enterprise. These are all very profession sectors, yet we do not actually divide these into different categories under the Social Workers Registration Board. So this is another blank page to the board. And the fifth disappointment, the board continues to stand at odds with the government. This is a very strange relationship. We do need public resources for the social workers. I'm sure that professional social workers provide or take or engage in duties that are set up by the government or supported by the government. Well, under such a relationship, professional social workers should adhere and comply with the needs of society, and these are the responsibilities of RSWs. Therefore, RSWs should actually practice mutual confidence with the administration, but very often the board is seen as actually on opposing sides of the government. So these are the 5 disappointments I have towards the Social Workers Registration Board. Therefore, I support the amendment of the bill. I believe that with the passage of the bill, we'll be able to foster professionalism. The amendments can actually help us reconstitute the membership of the board. At least half of them would still be social workers, and it can actually enhance the responsibilities. We'll be able to see that there would be a lot of non-social workers being on the board, because the number of appointed members will be increased to 17. For the other amendments proposed by the government, I believe that those are the views of the public. It can actually instill more confidence in the public and show that the government respects the bills committee. And these include appointing the chair and the deputy chair, and also to require board members to take an oath, and that those who have convicted offenses will not have their registration renewed. So these shows that we are actually in strong relationship with the government. We need to work together with the government to develop the economy and to provide more for the public. In 2008, I actually was a district councillor for the outlying islands, and I have to meet with grassroots families every day. Well, in order to improve myself, I enrolled in a master's program in social workers, and this really helped me enhance my skills in being in my capacity as a counselor. Some people asked whether social workers would be affected by the passage of the bill. I can say that it can really help us to once again regain confidence in our social workers, and it will better protect the interests of the public. I hope that since we're moving from stability to prosperity, we'll be able to work with all professions. I also hope that now, with the passage of the bill, we'll be able to really provide Hong Kong with more professional social workers for long-term development. Thank you. Mr. Yang Wen-kit. Dr. Teck Chi-yuen, is there a question? Well, I didn't want to cut into Mr. Tang Ka-piu's speech. I just want to say that he was disappointed in the registration board. I just want to say that within the existing mechanism, there was no such irresponsibility. I want to know what are the grounds for the disappointment in the registration board, because it was not under the terms of reference of the registration board. Dr. Teck Chi-yuen, you'll be able to speak in a moment. So you request for clarification from Mr. Tang Ka-piu. Mr. Tang, would you like to clarify? The registration board has a statutory responsibility to give proposals to the government, but there has not been such work in the past 20 years. I'd like to remind members that we're actually not carrying out a debate at the moment. You could clarify your point, but then if you have views, Dr. Teck, you'll be able to respond to Mr. Tang's views when it's your opportunity to speak. Mr. Yang Wen-kit. Thank you, Deputy President. The Social Workers Registration Board has a very strong responsibility, but in recent years, we could see that they allowed those were convicted with serious offenses to have their registration renewed, and there is still not yet a mechanism to try to expeditiously remove these people from the board. So that is actually not in the interest of the public and affects the professionalism and integrity of professional social workers. There is urgent need to take forward this bill, and I support the amendments for the expeditious removal of RSWs who have convicted serious offenses. Social workers support the underprivileged and the vulnerable. Therefore, the society has high expectations of social workers. Social workers, of course, should abide by the law when they are actually when what they're doing is opposing in ethics, then they must actually demonstrate or act as a role model for the public. However, during social arrest, many of the social workers actually encourage those they are providing support to engage in social unrest as well. social worker Chan Hong Seo, even though has been convicted of an offense, still has his registration renewed. Well, social workers should not actually be persuading other people to carry out serious crimes. In Taiwan, it is stipulated that professional social workers should abide by a certain code of practice and should not engage in offenses. How come in Hong Kong these people do not need to be removed from the board and yet continue have their registration renewed? And the board says that those who have committed offenses will be more understanding towards other people. But how do you ensure that these people would not continue to carry out other offenses? So who would bear such responsibility if that's the case? This is actually something not to be tolerated. Here, let me try to use another profession as an example. Let's talk about teachers. Teachers also bear a strong responsibility to be responsible to the society because what they do has a huge impact on students. People or the members of the public have high expectations of teachers. So for teachers who have committed offenses, the EDB will then disqualify their registration, and disqualified teachers would not be able to carry out any more teaching duties at schools or at tutorial schools or other centers. So why should social workers be excluded from such disqualifications? The amendments proposed are necessary. It can actually help us regain confidence in social workers and to uphold the integrity of the Social Workers Registration Board. We can actually see that the current members of the board has quite radical views. The passage of the bill can really help us change the composition of the board to increase it from 15 to 27, and so 17 would be appointed and 8 elected. One would be the Director of Social Welfare and another public officer. So that could bring in different voices to the board. 14 of these members would be social workers, and this shows that the government places top priority with the views from the profession. We see that ICAC and police and many other statutory organizations all have their chairs appointed by the chief executive. So by doing the same for the Social Workers Registration Board, then we'll be able to ensure that there will be a fair and just registration board. I'm happy to see that the government has proposed amendments to reconstitute the board to ensure that the board will be able to ensure that public interests be safeguarded. And recent years, the EDB, the Law Society, and all of them all require CPD, as the Social Workers Registration Board has called a halt to CPD in recent years. But now with the amendments made, there would be a prerequisite for registered social workers, and they can actually ensure that there will be professionalism, and this is something to be supported. Another view I'd like to share is that social workers should fight for the interests of the vulnerable, and not to instill wrong views or attitudes to those people. I understand that grassroots families are sometimes emotionally affected by their lifestyles. I agree that there should be professional training imposed on social workers to ensure that they would be better equipped with knowledge to provide professional advice to those in need. We don't want to see too much politics within the social workers board. With the amendments, the board will be more accepted by society, and of course the prerequisite of taking oath before being registered is a necessity. I don't think that this would lead to a huge exodus of social workers with the oath-taking requirement. Well, even if they leave, it's actually a good thing because we can better change the composition of the board and the registered social workers. We really want to welcome those who can really work in the interest of the public. I so submit supporting the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024 and all the amendments proposed. Thank you.
Ms. Connie Lam. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024. Over the past 3 months, there were a lot of debates on the reforming of the Social Workers Registration Board. There were supportive views and there were objections. Upholding national security is our priority. There shouldn't be diverging views. We can't leave any gray area and we must enhance legislation. I myself is a registered social worker. I support the bill. The reform will enhance the image of the social work profession and also our reputation. The problem is the tip of the iceberg. The problems demonstrated by the board is deep-rooted. In 2002, offense for endangering national security was included in Schedule 2, or rather 2022. 2 years have passed. The board still hasn't established a mechanism to ensure the effective implementation of this. It is because some people deliberately delay the process. Now, when the reform is on the verge, 7 elected members resigned. They only have a few months to remaining in their office. I really disapprove of their actions. Still, I have listened to genuine views from the industry. There are views that the government and the Legislative Council have neglected the views of the trade, and the reform would undermine the professional autonomy of the trade. But is that true? There are 6 registered social workers within the council. In council meeting and also at panels and the Bills Committee, our views have been adequately conveyed. We have received submissions and deputations from the trade and even the clients. We have had views that despite the expansion of the membership of the board, the majority of the members are still social workers. This will uphold professional autonomy of the board, and it will also ensure fair treatment and handling of disciplinary matters. The bill is beneficial for the trade. According to a survey, many social workers said that the bill would make it more difficult for them to voice up for human rights, social issues, social justice issues, and the clients, because it would make it easier for them to step on the red line. Well, I don't think that is true. The duties and responsibility of social workers will not be affected by the bill. The requirements include expansion of the membership, oath-taking requirements for the board and so on, and also the CPD requirement. Now, if a social worker is really professional, they would not hover above the red line, and the actions would not be interpreted as actions endangering national security. As I said, the social work profession is a highly professionalized trade. It works for the benefits of families, the underprivileged, and so on. The board is the gatekeeper of the trade. It will monitor the quality of service offered by the trade. While upholding social justice, social workers should not be contravening the law. On the contrary, with a clearer set of guidelines, social workers can fulfill their duties more easily. Concerning the gatekeeping role of the board, in the past, the board has the power to revoke application for a license or renewal application. However, these were all done behind closed doors. Even for persons convicted of serious offenses like assaulting a police officer and rioting, with the support of the majority of the board, they are still registered as social workers. Some people serving their sentence can apply for a renewal of their status online. This is unacceptable. So we need to assist the board in performing its gatekeeping role in vetting the applications. And this cannot be achieved simply by expanding the membership of the board. Even so, the board has no power to conduct a thorough background check for the applicants. Board members can only look up the information of the applicants online. So in the future, a central database should be set up to keep the information of all the registered social workers. We are emerging from stability to prosperity. We can't afford to lose stability at this juncture. If we allow malevolent elements into the board, it is a time bomb. We need to defuse the bomb. Under the principle of patriots administering Hong Kong, all board members must be patriots. They are the gatekeepers. Now, it is worth noting that many social workers think that they should only focus on serving the public, and they should turn a deaf ear to all other issues. However, the controversy arising from the past few months highlights the importance of raising the awareness on national security of the trade. Now, if training bodies offer more national study courses for the trade, we can understand better patriotism and serve our clients better and inculcate them with a positive value. We respect the uniqueness of every individual. We will uphold social justice and fairness. I so submit I support the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024. Reverend Peter Kuhn. Deputy President, the social workers are the guiding star of society. They are of crucial importance in guiding the development of society. We have been valuing the social work profession, and we have expectation on the integrity and moral bearings of the social workers. Now, the Social Workers Registration Board is the public body for upholding the quality of the trade. Its role is important, and it must perform its statutory functions diligently. However, in the past, many members of the board reviewed the governance issues within the board. So this is the right moment to reform the board. Through the reform, it is hoped that the professionalism, moral standards of the board members would be enhanced and public confidence would be restored. After the return of Hong Kong to the motherland, we embark on a path of politicization. During the 2019 anti-amendment bill saga, many social workers committed offenses endangering national security. It was disappointing, and it also undermined their professional image. After the enactment of the national security law, in 2022, the government amended the legislation and added offenses endangering national security to Schedule 2 of the Social Workers Registration Ordinance. Persons convicted of offense endangering national security is disentitled from being and registered social workers. Now, the intent was to allow the trade to rectify itself from the chaos and return to the right path. But the actions or non-actions of the board was disappointing. Even the board members voiced their grievances that the majority of the board members approved persons convicted of serious offenses to continue to be social workers. There are also mismanagement. For example, members were not allowed to retrieve the minutes of past meetings, and the decisions made by the chairperson was biased. So I support the amendment bill. Some social workers think that by increasing the number of appointed membership, it would undermine professional autonomy. But we must understand that if there are lots of elected members, it would mean that there are deeply vested interests. University professors, managers of corporations, or prominent personalities from sectors may be appointed to the seats for various interests. Now, with more appointed seats from the government, it would ensure that the operation of the board is fair. Now, I must reiterate that the reform is very moderate. The government has not taken back the power to register new social workers. Now, when there is a problem, the government may be blamed by the public that it has allowed the wrong person to become social workers. So even with the bill, the government may have to take up responsibility on any potential issues. So I think the amendment bill is already very moderate. I thank the administration for accepting two of my recommendations. First, requiring that the chairperson and deputy chairperson of the board to be appointed by the chief executive. So this would eliminate the perspective that social workers are shielding other social workers. Second, those who are convicted of offenses endangering national security, under the existing mechanism, they can still be registered as social workers with a resolve made by all members of the board. Now, we need to remove this escape clause. Those convicted persons should be stripped of their registration permanently. So I thank the government for accepting my recommendations. Now, the gene of social workers is unique. They are very sensitive to any social injustice. In the past, social work training focused too much on societal issues. The government was blamed every step of the way. But that would give rise to an internal strife. Now we need to return to pragmatism and push down our disputes. We need to collaborate with other stakeholders and foster a positive sentiment and work together to address the issues. I look forward to seeing the reconstituted board to enhance its work, for example, establishing a comprehensive depository to keep record of all the applicants' information. And also, through continuing professional developments, the quality of the trade can be enhanced, and the horizon can be broadened to a wide scope of social issues. It will also enhance the moral and ethics of our social workers. So we need to respect the social work profession as they are the guiding star of society. And we need to ensure integrity of the trade. Social workers are not beyond the law. There need to be a balance between professionalism and integrity. Once again, I thank the administration. I speak in support of the Social Workers Registration Amendments Bill 2024. Thank you.
You. Mr. Ronald Chan. Deputy President, in the last century, the Social Workers Registration Board was established, and I would call it the board, to oversee disciplinary and registration matters of social workers, to enhance the credibility of social workers and promote the development of the social work profession. And yet, in recent years, we have seen a lot of shortcomings and a spate of incidents. For example, there is a void when it comes to safeguarding national security, and there are a lot of queries. The amendment bill seeks to plug all the loopholes so as to better protect public interest. Now, last week, some elected members stepped down, resulting in only one elected member still remaining in position of all the 8 elected members. However, upon passage of the bill, the board will be reconstituted and public confidence will be salvaged. I'm not a member of the Bills Committee, but I have been paying attention to the discussion. Now, in terms of the constitution of the board, the administration proposes to expand the membership from 15 to 27, including registered social workers in different capacities, including one that also wears a hat as a public officer. I have sat on boards of statutory bodies. I understand the importance of divergent views and diversity of the backgrounds of members in order to have balanced representation. Now, 14 members, being RSWs, will continue to be in the profession, and that there will still be representation from the profession, in other words. I understand that there are different committees. There, for example, a reserve members list for DCP, along with some other committees responsible for different matters, such as administration, also committee on professional conduct, committee on qualification. In other words, in the future, if there are altogether over 20 members of the board, there would be no difficulty in maintaining operation of the board. And I suggest that each committee should comprise a similar number of members, say a dozen, so as to ensure a balance is struck. Now, under the current proposal, the chairperson and deputy chairperson will be elected by members among their own number. So there are, however, since the chairperson shoulders a very important responsibility, there have been suggestions that the 2 post holders should be appointed by the chief executive. The administration has accepted the members' suggestions, and it is only reasonable since many other statutory bodies also have chairpersons and deputies appointed by the chief executive. As for qualifications requirement, normally no person having a previous conviction record will be appointed to become a member of the board of any statutory body. I don't think there should be any exception for the Social Workers Registration Board. The board will have regard to the overall interest of Hong Kong people, so I think we should support the reconstituted board. And it is equally important to enhance and maintain transparency of the board, since it may involve some issues of widespread concern. Earlier, the board called to a halt the voluntary CPD scheme for RSWs. The board did not disclose any details. In the future, it is hoped that the board will be put under public scrutiny to enhance credibility. Now, as the saying goes, lifelong learning is needed for everyone. The same goes for lawyers, teachers, and other professions. We all need to comply with the CPD requirements. However, under the majority vote, the board decided to call to a halt the voluntary CPD scheme for RSWs in the end of 2023. So the development of the profession has been suspended. At the moment, the board may refuse an application for renewal of registration unless the RSW has fulfilled the CPD requirements. And also support another proposal is for the board to decide on these matters. Now, the Bills Committee received 65 written submissions from the social welfare sector, the social work profession, and other deputations. There is unanimous support for the amendment bill. It shows that the revamped proposal has the support of the wider of the public. I hope that with the passage of the bill, the board will be able to effectively give play to its statutory functions so as to safeguard public interest and the profession. I support the bill as well as all the amendments. Mr. Tommy Cheung. Thank you, Deputy President. The Liberal Party gives its unwavering support for the administration's Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024. Our party will also be supporting the committee stage amendments to be moved in due course. The object of the bill is to address the various problems facing the board in recent years. We need to right the wrong. There are a number of issues. Recently, for example, the board approved a number of RSWs convicted of serious offenses such as possession and trafficking in dangerous drugs, theft, contempt of court, to be registered or continue to be registered as an RSW. More outrageously, the board approved an RSW convicted of a rioting offense to become a member of the board. This is total disregard of the law. If this happens to another self-regulating body, it will definitely cause widespread concern in the community. So the Social Workers Registration Board should not be made an exemption. At the moment, Section 17, subsection 4 gives the board discretion for a person convicted of an imprisonable offense that may bring disrepute to the social work profession. The board may still allow registration of this person as a social worker. There are also other types of offenses: child abuse, sex crimes, serious personal assault, kidnapping, as well as offenses endangering national security introduced in 2022 into the schedule. These are called serious offenses. Now, Section 17, subsection 5 provides an escape clause for those who have committed the so-called Schedule 2 offenses. That means, after considering all circumstances, all members of the board may still give a majority vote to allow the person to be an RSW. Considering the provision in Section 17(5), you will find that it is absolutely outrageous. Before Hong Kong's return to our country in 1997, the bill was passed by the Legislative Council. The object of the bill was to honor the work of the social workers and respect their work for the underprivileged. The purpose was to allow ex-offenders to become registered social workers after rehabilitation to help those in need in the community. Back then, the Legislative Council gave full recognition to ex-offenders in their rehabilitation efforts. And that is why we have this escape clause this clause in the bill to allow ex-offenders to turn anew and become social workers to help others. Back then, some members even asked for a more flexible approach. That is to set up a mechanism that is more stringent concerning these 5 types of offenses, and that only when there is unanimous support of the board should this person be allowed to be registered as an RSW. So that's the background of this provision. In recent years, the board gave the go-ahead for those convicted of serious offenses to be registered as an RSW, and this goes against the original intent of Section 17(4). And in particular, since we now have offenses endangering national security incorporated in Schedule 2 as well, the board in this case allowed this person involved in ongoing proceedings relating to a rioting charge to be a registered social worker, and without the unanimous support of all members. Again, this is something we need to be put that needs to be put right. However, we must face squarely the reality that some social workers are anti-government and confrontational. The Liberal Party will support the amendments to be moved in due course. These amendments include the following. The chairperson and deputy chairpersons are to be appointed by the chief executive instead of being returned by election among the board members. I thank the Secretary for proposing this amendment. At the Bills Committee, I already told you that if the administration did not move this amendment, I would move it anyway. The second amendment involves a requirement for this person to take the board member oath before the Secretary for Labor and Welfare or a person authorized by the Secretary to administer the oath before this person is qualified to become an RSW. The third amendment is to remove the offense endangering national security from Schedule 2, and that the escape clause will be removed. At the Bills Committee, I pointed out on the basis of my experience in moving the private members' bill on the CUHK Council that even if there is an escape clause, any decision should be made by secret balloting so that members can exercise their right to vote without fear or favor. Now, the amendment bill does not address this issue, whether it should be open or secret ballot. After passage of the bill, I hope the Secretary will give it a thought. We support resuming the second reading of the bill.
Mr. Chan Pui Leung. Deputy President, Social workers support the needy and the underprivileged. Their every move actually has a huge impact on those people. Therefore, members of the public have high expectations of social workers. And as such, I support the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill so that it can better protect the interests of the public, uphold national security, and to protect the integrity of social workers. Recently, many of the matters of the board have been criticized by the public. For example, even though there were many objecting views, the board still allowed someone who has been convicted of an offense to stay on the disciplinary committee of the board. The government proposed amendments to enhance the integrity of the board, including expanding membership of the board to increase the number from 15 to 27, and with the number of appointed members increased from 6 to 17, and also to have the chairman and deputy chairman appointed by the CE. These people would also need to take an oath before the secretary or person authorized by the secretary to administer the oath. I believe that with the passage of the bill, it can ensure that the board in future be fair and to be just in extending its work. However, a small number of people query that the amendments will actually have an impact on professional autonomy, and they think that it is actually a move to target social workers. I believe that these are all groundless allegations. This is not a shield for social workers who are on the borderline of convicting offenses. In recent years, a series of social events have shown us that many people have been using professional organizations as a shield to support wrong behavior, and they just use the term professional autonomy to ignore regulations. If a professional organization cannot self-reflect and make improvements, then we do need to help them to ensure that they are back on the right path. The registration board is in charge of 27,000 registered social workers in Hong Kong, and they have huge responsibility to process applications for registration. Even with the expansion of membership of the board, the administration still respects the profession of social workers, because out of the 27 board members, there would be still be half being social workers. And to promote a more diverse, broader, and more balanced participation, there would be members from different walks of life, and this can really be conducive to the just operation by the board. I would like to point out that any professional organization looking for long-term development must improve with times and to engage in continuing profession education. Let's use insurance as an example. Every year there is a requirement of 15 hours of CPD before the renewal of registration. Therefore, I'm in full support of this new condition imposed on social workers for registration renewal, and that will be beneficial to the professionalism of social workers. I so submit supporting the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024 and all its amendments. Mr. Tang Fei, Deputy President, I speak in support of the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024 due to the recent in light of the recent disruptions. The government now has proposed the amendment bill to reconstitute the Social Workers Registration Board, and we're now trying to complete it before the end of the year. Social workers provide assistance to the needy, and therefore there is a need to uphold its integrity to protect the interests of the public. The Social Welfare Department has pointed out 5 issues of the board. So when the national security law came into effect, then on July 22nd of 2022, it came into effect. Anyone who endangers national security would not be or continue to be a registered social worker. However, the Social Workers Registration Board, still within those 2 years, did not set up a mechanism to prohibit such people from having their registration renewed. They continue to drag their feet, and what is more outrageous is that the registration board is not able to provide a list of those who have convicted offenses, and the government has to search online to see who those people are. So in the past couple of years, there have been over tens of cases of social workers committing offenses such as drug trafficking, taking drugs, etc. But these people still continue to be registered on the board. So that is totally ridiculous and outrageous, and they did not even inform the government on that. And that is really intolerable. Members have also mentioned cases in which some social worker offenders have already been convicted and are still waiting for judicial proceedings, yet these people continue to sit on the disciplinary committee of the registration board, and they can still take up such responsibilities. The registration board should actually suspend the powers of such persons until the judicial proceedings have been completed, yet they did not do so. So even the secretary asked whether out of 27,000 social workers in Hong Kong, there is really such a need to appoint an offender to act as a committee member on the board. Well, with the passage of the bill, there would be an extension of the membership, and there would actually still be 14 social workers on the board. Even though some people suggested putting in a period in which the offender should be removed from the registration board, we see that the government has addressed by saying that they try to continue with the existing mechanism in the application processing and renewal of registration, and that the registration board will continue to uphold its professional autonomy. Social welfare, social workers are actually a huge power in protecting the rights of people, and even if the social welfare, even if the Secretary for Social Welfare does not regulate their professionalism, they should at least ensure that they'll be able to uphold their autonomy. Social workers' profession should go back onto the right track. A Russian once said that there are actually different kinds of underprivileged people in society. There are people who do need mental support, people who need professional help. I've asked a social worker friend that when they are handling with different cases, they will need to face with a lot of negative emotions and sentiments. So how can they actually stand under such negative pressure? My friend said that those who cannot stand under such pressure would not be working in this field, and that they really do need they really need to be able to bear this to enter this profession. We do need professional social workers in our society. Earlier, we wanted to identify those who have an inclination to commit suicide, and social workers actually play a very pivotal role in that. We want the social workers to focus more on their profession, and I call upon the government to make reference to the CE Teaching Award. This is actually a very high degree award given to professional teachers. They can actually consider awarding such an honor to social workers as well.
Mr. Jimmy Ng. Thank you, Deputy President. The image of the social work profession is a profession that helps the underprivileged and give voice to the underprivileged. But this is more than just helping an elderly woman cross the road. A social worker would look at the needs of the elderly woman. That's why it is a profession. To ensure professional development of the trade, we need to reform the Social Workers Registration Board. This is the direction of the bill. The purpose is to enhance and elevate the professionalism of the trade. Now, after the enactment of the National Security Law, the Social Workers Registration Ordinance must be updated as well. The bill proposes that for members of the board, whether they are appointed or elected among members, an oath must be taken. And social workers who have endangered national security must be permanently removed from the register. There are concerns that the change in composition of the board may undermine professional autonomy. However, after increasing the ratio of appointed members, the board still comprises mainly of registered social workers, so this does not undermine the professionalism of the board. Over the past 30 years, the board has made zero progress on enhancing the continuing professional development requirements. As the gatekeeper of the trade, the board must put public interest first. To ensure that the quality of the trade is enhanced, social workers must be required to continue to better themselves so as to meet the changing needs of the society. I support adding the new functions of requiring continuing professional development to the board. This is in line with the public's expectation for the social work profession. Now, by adding more professionals from other sectors to the board, there can be more collaboration in experience sharing to enhance the quality of social work services. Now, the board is the licensing body of the trade. The bill will enhance the governance and the structure of the board. It will lay a solid foundation for the development of the trade. It will ensure that the power conferred upon the board is utilized for promoting continuous development of the trade. Dr. Johnny Ng. Deputy President, in the past, Hong Kong people used to call the social workers the guiding star. there was a drama in the 1980s featuring two huge stars called the North Star. Now, if you look at the night sky, you can find your way by finding the North Star, even when you are lost. The drama was very encouraging for young people, and it puts a lot of young people on the path of becoming social workers. However, in the past few years, many social workers deviated from the professionalism of the trade. It hurts the credibility of the trade, and now the social work profession is no longer the guiding star of society. We need to rectify the situation. Today's bill is to enhance the governance of the Social Workers Registration Board. It is important in upholding the reputation of the trade. It will ensure that the board will bear public interest in mind and enhance the reputation of the trade. Now, I think we must enhance the governance promptly and ensure that the board upholds national security. It exercises public power in serving the public interest. Now, 5 failures have been highlighted for the board, including that it fails to remove the name of a convicted RSW who has been convicted of endangering national security offense from the register, and also the CPD scheme was not implemented, and also a person under trial for an offense of riots was allowed to serve on the disciplinary committee panel. These are wrong. Now, also, if all members of the board so resolved, a person convicted of an offense can still be registered. Under the present mechanism, the board is not required to report to the government social workers who are convicted of serious offenses. Now, the bill provides for a mechanism to promptly remove the name of the convicted RSWs from the register. Social workers have a huge influence on their clients. They must inculcate their clients with positive values. So they must have an awareness of national security. And for those who have committed offense endangering national security, their license should be revoked permanently. Now, there are criticisms that the expansion of the board's membership would undermine professional autonomy. However, the board is a public body. It must be held accountable. The reconstituted board will be more representative and more credible. Also, among the 27 members, at least 14 would be registered social workers. It is fully in line with the principle of professional autonomy. Now, social workers are professionals at the forefront in interacting with adolescents. So besides their professional knowledge, they must be morally upright people. They are the ones to show care and support to the underprivileged people. Now, we cannot allow the trade's reputation to be undermined by a few black sheep. Thank you.
Ms. Doreen Hall. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024. Social workers play a pivotal role in our society. They are the beacon guiding members of the public on important decisions, and it is a very important profession in our society. All along, our society has respected the contributions made by social workers, and they are there to help the most underprivileged. They help them emerge from darkness and turn anew. Nowadays, social problems are getting more complex, and as a result, we do expect more from social workers. They should fulfill the basic social and moral responsibilities. Systematic training, likewise, is an important admission ticket for those who'd like to become social workers. However, some social workers have deviated from their profession. They have politicized the social issues, and some indoctrinate the service users, such as young people with radical thoughts. Coming back to the core values of social work, social workers should help others. They should promote fairness and impartiality. But some social workers have deviated from these core values. They have betrayed their peers. They've tarnished the image of the social work profession in the eyes of the general public, and they have also undermined the contribution made by fellow social workers, and they even cause social disruptions. As such, I support the administration's amendment bill so that we can make things right in terms of the board's composition and registration matters, so that the profession can be well equipped to face future challenges, so that this sector can give play to its value in serving the community. Now, in other places, social workers are subject to very tight scrutiny. Government officials and other public officers form part of the registration board in carrying out statutory functions, in vetting applications of social workers so that they can be guiding stars of the community. According to a very in-depth article looking into the role of social workers in the 21st century, the social work profession is under a lot of challenges. For example, they have blurred identity, and the work environment is less than desirable, and they also find great challenges in attracting new blood. It is important that they tackle these challenges. Now, the South Australia in 2021 passed the Social Workers Registration Act. The Act sets out very clearly what is meant by a fit and proper person to be registered as a social worker. There are also 7 committees under their Social Workers Registration Board, with every member appointed by the Australian government. Many places are turning the social workers into a profession. Now, earlier, the New Zealand Parliament passed a piece of legislation so that there will be higher qualification requirements in the face for social workers by 2026. I believe these new laws and measures can help make the social work profession more capable. Now, the other important point is trust. It's not just about trust between professionals and their clients, but the public trust in social workers. Without trust, there is no respect, and without respect, everything will fall apart. We need concerted efforts together with guidance and regulation of the profession, so that over the years we can eventually build trust between the public and the profession. And I believe this amendment can help us make a new start. Mr. Tony Chair. Thank you, Deputy President. Now, under the Hong Kong National Security Law, it is provided that the Hong Kong SAR, as well as everyone in Hong Kong SAR, should do their utmost to safeguard national security. Now, Basic Law 23 enactment, and that is Safeguarding National Security Ordinance, also provides that for those carrying certain statutory functions, it should be construed that they also carry the function of safeguarding national security. The Social Workers Registration Board is responsible for the registration of social workers in Hong Kong and promote the orderly development of the social work profession. These are important duties, and as such, the board is also responsible for safeguarding national security. However, in 2019 and even in the Occupy Central movement earlier, we heard about elements claiming themselves to be social workers, and they blatantly breached the laws of Hong Kong in the name of civic disobedience. They even claimed to be social workers to attend the scenes in order to help out, but in fact they were the anti-China elements causing disruptions to Hong Kong. And they also tarnished the image of the social work profession. And yet the Social Workers Registration Board had been very tolerant. The board continued to allow these social workers to renew the registration. Some law-breaking social workers even become members of the board. In 2022, the administration put forward a legislative amendment to incorporate an offence endangering national security into Schedule 2 of the Social Workers Registration Ordinance. The purpose is to stop offenders convicted of an offence endangering national security from being registered as a social worker. Despite passage of this piece of legislation, the board has delayed in the action in stopping the registration of such individuals. As a result, it is likely that these offenders could continue to indoctrinate young people's minds with ill ideas. The board has continued to allow those convicted of serious offences to renew their registration. The board even allowed a member convicted of an offence endangering national security to be a board member. The board has continued to condone and connive such law-breaking behavior. This sets the background for the amendment bill, and this is also why we support the amendment bill. We want to make things right. Deputy President, I am not really familiar with social welfare or the social work profession, but over the years I have had experience in joining the professional body to oversee the work of the profession. A decade ago, I was chair of the Surveys Registration Board. Now I represent my profession, surveyors, planners, and there are also other professions such as lawyers, etc. By comparison, not many people recognize social workers as a profession on a par with the other professionals I mentioned. Still, public money is involved. Social workers are supposed to help the underprivileged and promote the healthy and positive development of our young people. However, if there is a lack of trust in social workers by the public, if the social workers are underperforming, then it will be far from satisfactory. Along with other G19 members, I support the amendment bill so as to enhance the governance of the registration board, to enhance the oversight of the social work profession. Some board members have stepped down, airing their grievances of the amendment bill. I, on the other hand, believe the amendment bill to be appropriate. It is effective. In particular, one of the amendments is to make board members take the board member oath to uphold the basic law and bear allegiance to the Hong Kong SAR. This can help enhance the professional capacity of social workers and effectively safeguard national security. About reconstitution of the board, the oath-taking requirement, as well as the provisions relating to removal of the name of certain individuals from the register, I will reserve my argument at the committee stage. Now, I'd like to turn to CPD requirements. At the moment, there is a voluntary CPD registration scheme in place for social workers. Now, this is already good news for the social work profession, because for other professions, they need to undergo mandatory courses. If a member of these professions fails to complete certain hours of CPD training within a certain time frame, they will lose their professional status. The purpose is for them to be equipped with the most up-to-date professional knowledge. However, the board scrapped the voluntary scheme. It's really not palatable. It's really difficult to understand. It also goes against public interest. Some say that social workers already have a lot on their plate, and any mandatory CPD requirement will get in their way of helping others. Now, let me cite some examples. Property management staff also work long hours, and it is very difficult for the Property Management Services Authority to take forward the mandatory CPD requirements. But the majority of the sector are in favor of CPD requirements, citing that it would support the professional development of the sector. In the amendment bill, the board is empowered to refuse registration of an RSW who has not met the CPD requirement. I believe the amendment is necessary. It is also urgent. Most of these provisions will come into immediate effect upon the third reading of the bill and passage of the bill. Whereas for some other provisions, they will only take effect after the board has been reconstituted. I hope that indicators and a timetable can be mapped out to help enhance the professional image and capacity of social workers. I support the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024. I support the resumption of the second reading of the bill, and on behalf of the G19 members, I support the third reading of the bill along with the amendments.
Mr. Lerman Kwong. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024. The Social Workers Registration Board is responsible for processing applications for registration as well as dealing with disciplinary offenses in accordance with the ordinance and other matters. Therefore, they must protect the interests of the public. At the same time, to uphold the integrity of the profession and to foster long-term development. The Social Welfare Bureau has already incorporated Schedule 2 in the ordinance to ensure that those who have committed such offenses will not be allowed to be registered social workers. As some other members have said, some of the board has already deviated from the spirit of its profession and still has not yet taken any measures to prohibit those persons who have committed offenses to continue as registered social workers. So there is a need for our amendments this time. In the amendment, we change the composition of the board by revising the number from 15 to 27, out of which 17 would be appointed, and they would also be required to take an oath to swear allegiance to the HKSAR, and that would promote a more diverse, broader, and more balanced participation in the board. Therefore, I am in full support of this revamp. The chair and the deputy chair of the registration board bears huge responsibilities. They are actually in charge of holding the meetings and to safeguard the credibility of the board. However, the existing mechanism is that the chairman and deputy would be voted by members. By changing it to be appointed by the CE is actually quite appropriate. Many statutory organizations, chair and deputy chair are appointed by the chief executive, and there's actually no impact to the professionalism of such organizations. There, I believe that this would actually enhance the credibility of the board. I am sure that members of the public hold in high regard social workers. Now we are moving from stability to prosperity, and there would be increased demand for social workers. There are now higher expectations on social workers' integrity. Therefore, social workers should work in a just manner. I believe that with the amendments, we'll be able to reverse the existing mechanism, and that all the negative views on the board would thus be reversed, and we'll be able to really uphold patriotism in this sector. People from different walks of life will then be willing to believe in social workers, and this would actually help us in our long-term development of our society. I so submit. Mr. Chen Yong. Thank you, President. Thank you, Secretary and Secretary. We are in huge support of the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024 and all the proposed amendments. We all know that there are many professions in Hong Kong, with social workers being one of them. Social workers not only should uphold the law, but should also be an ethical person, a person with integrity. When help is needed, especially those underprivileged, then they can seek the assistance of social workers. I am also a registered social worker. We provide support to grassroots in society and to those who are most vulnerable. The impact of social workers actually are comparable to that of teachers and medical staff, and therefore many people hold in high regard the profession of social workers. Members of the public hope that persons from the board or registered social workers must uphold the law. We only propose amendments now because we have gone through challenges. Only those who have gone through war would see peace as pivotal in their lives. We saw during social unrest that there were social workers encouraging persons to go against the law. We are proposing amendments to the bill because we have seen many incidents from the registration board. The board could not protect the interest of the public and uphold national security and the safety of the people. The government, the secretary, and the media have all raised many issues from the board because the board once appointed a person who has committed a crime to sit on the disciplinary committee of the board. I am sure that when there is such a person acting as a lawyer or doctor, then people would be very worried. We look for high ethics and morals, but more importantly, board members should at least abide by the law. They have brought along challenges during the social unrest, and there have been collusion of outside forces. We are just now trying to make amendments to help Hong Kong return to its former glory, to its former stability. So it's just like treating an ill patient to help along with its recovery. So everyone I have approached are in full support of the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill. I have seen other examples written up by the media. In the last 2.5 years, 300 members who have been convicted of crimes have seen their registration renewed. So that actually has a very negative impact on the reputation and professionalism of social workers. And there were 2 who were convicted and sentenced who could still remain registered as members. We have seen from the media that experienced social workers have stated that board meetings are long as marathons, and that the board would drag their feet in dealing with official matters. Therefore, amendments to the bill must be done expeditiously so as to ensure that we return to stability. The amendments actually are quite mild, including expanding the membership of the board. Some members of the public asked us whether this is essential. We actually are ensuring that the majority of members would still be social workers. And we just want to promote a more diverse and balanced participation in the board. any profession, especially social workers, would put the interest of members of the public first. A balance must be made, and this is one of the reasons why we support the revamp of the registration board. The government has also accepted some of our proposals. In future, there will just be more responsibilities on the board. We believe that with the chair being appointed by the chief executive, then we'll be able to ensure that the board will go back on the right track, and it can actually rebuild the reputation of the board. The chief executive is the highest ranking official in Hong Kong, and therefore he would ensure the integrity of the board. Board members represent all members, out of which half of them would be RSWs. Another point that the public is concerned with is that those who actually commit a national security crime should not be accepted as a registered social worker. It's much like a doctor or a teacher committing a serious crime yet continue to take care of your children. That would be very worrying. We hope that the board can act as a gatekeeper to bring all back to the right path and to promote positive vibes from the board. And with the passage of the bill, we'll be able to protect the interests of the community and ensure professional and stable development. And we look forward to better development of social workers in future. Thank you.
Mr. Yim Kong. Thank you, President. The HSL government took the initiative to introduce the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill. It demonstrates the constitutional principles of patriots administering Hong Kong and an executive-led approach in governance. I fully support the amendments bill. The Social Workers Registration Board is an apolitical public body serving the public. Its functions are not related to politics, and board members should not have a specific political stance. Nor should the social workers make a distinction between their clients based on political standings. However, in the past few years, we saw a lot of political activities conducted by social workers. They even engaged in anti-China destabilizing activities. The board, which is a public body, publicly funded body, turned a blind eye to social workers who participated in these illegal activities. Even those who are convicted were allowed to keep their registration. These inappropriate behaviors of certain members of the board have caused a lot of grievances in the public. It is time we put the board back on its right path so that it meets the expectation of the public and the constitutional standing of the board. Now, the amendment bill is a timely one. We need to rectify the situation immediately. Now, the bill is a rightful measure to restore the function of the board. It is an executive-led approach. The government will appoint the chairperson and the deputy chairperson of the board, and all board members are required to take an oath to uphold the basic law and pledge allegiance to the Hong Kong SAR. It is in line with the public's expectation and also the development interests of Hong Kong. The bill plugs the loophole of the existing mechanism. Now, I hope that the reconstituted board will implement the revamped mechanism faithfully and clear the parts from the social work profession. It should galvanize the image of the social work profession as a positive force in the community and win the support and respect from the public. President, as a member of the Bills Committee, I thank the chairman of the Bills Committee, Mr. Gary Chan, for his great leadership so that we can complete our scrutiny work efficiently. I also thank the team led by the Secretary for Labour and Welfare, Dr. So Chang Wing. Thank you, President. Now, according to the survey conducted by the Social Workers Registration Board itself, in recent years, the number of complaints against social workers has seen a rising trend. In 2019 and 20, the number of complaints rocketed. It brought to the public's attention the deep-rooted issues within the trade. At the same time, some decisions made by the existing board have caused controversy. They have neglected public interest and the professionalism of the profession. Social workers involved or charged with writing offences were put on the disciplinary committee panel. A dozen social workers with possession of dangerous drug trafficking and contempt of court conviction were allowed to renew their registration. Despite the strong opposition from the appointed members in the board, the elected members, which are the majority of the board, refused to change their ways, and it caused dire situations. Now, on the 22nd of July 2022, when offences endangering national security were included on Schedule 2, the board was supposed to report social workers who have endangered national security to the government and establish a mechanism to identify such social workers. However, no actions were taken to implement the arrangement. A social worker being charged with rioting offense was given a renewal under the previous term of the board. Now, after the Schedule 2 was updated, the social workers' registration was not reviewed on whether the conditions are still met. The board has deviated from the spirit of upholding public interest. Now, these failures show that there are all sorts of deep-rooted issues within the social work profession which need to be rectified. Now, the board is the gatekeeper of the moral standing of the profession. We need to revamp the composition and the structure of the board. I speak in support of the Social Workers Registration Amendments Bill 2024 and the amendments. President, in my opinion, cases warranting intervention by social workers, the clients in these cases are usually vulnerable at a vulnerable stage of their life. Social workers can exert great influence on the mindset of the clients. Now, the government is the decision maker in terms of allocation of public resources. So it is only natural for the government to revamp the composition of the board to uphold the credibility and image of the social work profession. As a member of the Bills Committee, I was involved all along in this scrutiny process. I am pleased to see that the administration has listened to various views. Our views were taken on board to enhance the monitoring of the board's function. Now, this reform is a long time coming. Now, in 1997, the Social Workers Registration Ordinance was enacted. It has received no updates in 2 decades' time. Some provisions are already out of date. In view of societal changes and also the situation of the profession, it is time to amend the ordinance. Now, the contents of the bill are to increase the number of members in the board from 27, and 14 of the members will be registered social workers for reflecting the views of the trade. Not only does this change introduce more voices into the board and enhance the public monitoring of the work of the board, it also highlights the principle of professionalism and diversification. The change ensures that there is an appropriate balance between requests of the trade and the public's expectation. It will rebuild public confidence in the profession. Also, all members of the board are required to take an oath. Board members are responsible for registration of social workers. They are also empowered to deal with disciplinary issues and uphold the professional ethics of the trade. Now, they have a heavy burden on their shoulder. Concerning the recommendations made by the Bills Committee, the administration has agreed to move amendments. For example, once a registered social worker is convicted of an offense endangering national security, even if all members of the board resolve to keep the registration of the person in question will still be revoked, and the RSW will be disentitled to register as a social worker permanently. Another enhancement is enhancing the oath-taking arrangement. It is modeled upon the oath-taking arrangement for district councillors. Written oath will become an oath in person to highlight the importance of the oath-making procedure. And also, chairperson and deputy chairperson will be appointed by the chief executive instead of being elected from among members. It will ensure that while upholding professional autonomy, the government's policy directions will also be considered by the chairperson. Now, all these amendments are for ensuring the sustainable developments of the profession in a highly systemized manner. It has received the support of the profession as well as members of the public. However, some members of the profession worry that empowering the board to set requirements on CPD it may neglect the individualized continuing professional development need of individual social workers. But if you look at other professions like the legal trade, ophthalmologist, property management, and so on, all the stakeholders, all the practitioners are required to undergo continuing professional development to ensure that their professional knowledge are kept up to date and that the service quality is continuously enhanced. CPD is important for every industry. It embodies the professionalism of the trade. Concerning the improvements on the social work profession, the bill is already mild. Now, with the implementation of the bill, I hope that the social work profession can scale new heights.
Dr. Tip Chi Yun. President, when I was studying in the secondary school, I watched this drama called Social Worker, or in Chinese, Bak Dao Sing. The TV drama was about about social work, and I learned a lot about social workers through this TV drama. I was fortunate enough to join the profession. In fact, I've been a social worker for more than 4 decades. It's a meaningful occupation. Ricky, the staff in my office, was one of the members of a youth committee in the place I worked. He told me that I'm really fond of being a social worker. I find the job very meaningful. It is the social worker's duty to care for the community and to strive for social justice for all. In residential care homes for the elderly, we show care for the elderly, and for those with mental health issues, social workers also give them support and tide them over difficulties. Whenever there are conflicts within families, social workers step in and help enhance communication and resolve conflicts. Whenever a child needs care, social workers will draw plans for the welfare of the child. Social workers also give a voice to the community for the issues to be heard by the government. We always look after the underprivileged, and I'd like to say this to the Secretary. Every day we fight the corner for the underprivileged, and we are doing as much, if not more, comparing to your good work. So please cherish the profession. Unfortunately, since 20 years ago, the government have been slashing welfare spending. And for a long time, social workers faced a lot of challenges, such as long working hours, inadequate pay, and other conditions that really deal a blow to the spirit of the profession. Despite having so much on our back, social workers continue to remain steadfast at the front line to help those in need in the community. I urge everyone to get to know more about the work of the social workers, and we should not do anything to deal a further blow to this profession. Indeed, there is always room for improvement when it comes to the Social Workers Registration Board, and the Social Workers Registration Board should play a more active role in, say, promoting CPD to ensure the quality of social workers. The object of the amendment bill is to promote professional development of the social workers. I believe this is, after all, the consensus and the goal of our profession. Now, indeed, there is support for reconstitution of the board, and at the same time, there are concerns from social workers. I hope that in the future, the administration would fully communicate with the social work profession and explain the details of the amendment to convince them that it is for the professional development of the sector. And to quote from the Secretary, it is hoped that the board will honor professionalism. And in order to do that, I have the following suggestions. University professors should be appointed to the board because they have the expertise and professional insight into the development of the social work profession. You should also appoint members of the social work organizations to the board because they are familiar with the sector. Representatives of service users should also be appointed because they know the needs of the community. We also need other members of the community to be appointed so as to give a more diverse portfolio of the board. Now, it's time that we put things behind us and move forward together. We should see this bill as an opportunity to promote the professional development of the social work profession so as to give the best interest of the underprivileged in mind. Dr. Tan Yue-heng. Social workers help the underprivileged. They safeguard the rights of the needy, and social workers play a very important role in this regard. They are one of the professions that have a lot of influence in our community. So it is only right that CPD requirements should be put in place to safeguard the interests of the underprivileged and the general public. I support the amendment bill. First of all, we need to enhance the governance of the board. Social workers provide services to different groups such as young people, elderly, children. Social workers should take the oath to uphold the basic law and bear allegiance to the Hong Kong SAR. They should take the oath to make sure that they have the best interests of the profession and the public in mind. Through the amendment bill, the governance of the board will be enhanced so that social workers will uphold the original intention of serving the underprivileged, so as to salvage public confidence in the profession as well. Second point, social workers serve families, individuals, organizations. They support them and they're the experts in solving social issues. They are the professionals. At the moment, there is a voluntary CBD scheme for registered social workers. We need to make sure that social workers are kept abreast with the times. They should be equipped with the most up-to-date knowledge so as to live up to the expectations on the social work profession. I support the amendment bill, which sets out the CPD requirements for the profession. I believe that this can help enhance the quality of social work and enhance the credibility of the profession and promote its long-term development. Now, as far as the development of the sector is concerned, social welfare organizations face this common challenge of manpower shortage. social workers always need to give extra. They are also under a lot of pressure in the face of service users. According to a survey, 93% of social workers experience fatigue because of short of manpower and lack of emotional support. Now, apart from enhancing the governance of the board to govern the conduct of social workers, the administration should also provide more resources to help social workers in distress. There should be more resources to help them so as to support them in helping the underprivileged and to attract more young people to join the profession.
Mr. Kenneth Leung. Thank you, President. The social workers profession plays a very important role in supporting the underprivileged. Therefore, I acknowledge the contribution by social workers. However, this is exactly the case why we need to uphold the reputation of the social workers. So this is how I look at the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill. I am in support of the reform of the governance. We must put public interest first to ensure that the registration board be more fair and transparent and diversified to actually resume the integrity and credibility of the board. The composition of the board will be increased to 27, and this can actually enhance the professional autonomy. There would actually not be politicizing the composition of the board. And other amendments, including removing RSWs who have committed offenses and having registered RSWs taking oath for before registration. Board members should all bear allegiance to HKSAR and to uphold the basic law. Because the Social Workers Registration Board is a statutory organization, there is a need to regulate social workers and also ensure its professionalism. While we were scrutinizing the bill, I, together with other members, expressed concern that there should not only be a proposed written oath and that the oath should be taken at a time and place specified by the secretary. I believe that there should also be oath taking by the panel of reserve members for the body's disciplinary committee. They also bear many responsibilities, and therefore the condition should also be oath-taking as well. I hope that the revamped board could follow up with this change. Another issue resolved by the amendments is the removal of names of registered social workers convicted of certain offenses from the register. Currently, under the mechanism, then the board can actually remove the name of RSWs convicted of offenses from the register. However, there is not a time period regulated. Now, with the new Section 2A, to have the national security offenses to be put in Schedule 2 of the ordinance is something that I am in support of. According to the newly amended Section 24, RSWs shall notify the board of any offense, and the names of these persons will need to be removed for 5 years. The board said that after the period of 5 years, persons could register again, but then the board would also act as a gatekeeper to see whether they would approve of such registration again. We were able to expeditiously finish with the scrutiny of the bill. I remember that on May 17th, we gazetted the bill and then started first reading on May 24th. And on May 31st, the committee started its scrutiny of the bill and completed it by June 7th, during which time there were many dialogues between the BC and the administration. Members expressed their concern on the appointment of the chair and deputy chair and suggested that it be appointed by the CE instead of being voted amongst the members. The administration was willing to accept many of members' views, and this shows that we were able to have check and balances for public interest. I need to thank the secretary for his support so that we were able to complete with the scrutiny of the bill in a speedy manner. President, I so submit supporting the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill. Dr. Starry Lee. President, I speak in support of the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill. I support the bill because the bill has to go with the times, and this really goes with how we're moving from stability to prosperity, and we were able to reverse the damage brought along by social unrest. I have high expectations for the revamped board, that it can lead RSWs in enhancing the professionalism of social workers. Many members have raised this point. We have seen scenarios in which we do need the professional help of social workers. Every time we see cases of mental health or suicidal attempts, we do need to seek the support of social workers, and we hope that they'll be able to provide timely support to the public. Secondly, I hope the reconstituted board can work well together with stakeholders, especially in governance. Currently, the care team and we see that there's been a huge step forward, and every time the HJD and together with the care team will be the first to provide support to their district. We believe that with social workers' help, we'll be able to better cater to the needs of the districts. Thirdly, I hope that social workers will have a better understanding of our country. Recently, we have seen that there is an exchange for social workers to visit the mainland. Some social workers have told me that they haven't had much of these opportunities before. And we see that now we are in a new era. Social workers hope to gain a better understanding of our country, and such exchanges would be vital. I hope the Secretary will promote this as well. Lastly, I believe social workers can support our country in policies. President Xi continues to promote the Belt and Road Initiative. We want the whole world to be united. Many professionals, RSWs, have participated in projects along the Belt and Road. our professional organizations have supported many of these projects. And I believe that with proper training, our social workers can also contribute to society. I hope that the Secretary will clarify the amendments to the public and to the profession. We legislators are in full support, but there are still many different views in the community. The Secretary should take this opportunity to conduct more exchanges with RSWs so that we'll be able to better contribute to the community under the new era.
Mr. Chen Ginpo. Thank you, President. Earlier on social media, the Secretary for Labour and Welfare criticized the decisions made by the Social Workers Registration Board. They deviated from the professionalism of the trade. For example, persons convicted of serious offences and offences endangering national security are still allowed to register social workers. That's why the government has to intervene. Now, the membership of the board will be increased to 27. 8 members will still be elected among social workers, and there will be 17 appointed members. The membership of the board is expanded. Besides social workers, professionals and members of the public from other sectors will also be brought in. It will broaden participation of the board. The perspectives considered by the board will be broadened. And also for social workers who have committed serious offences, including offences endangering national security, the registration will be revoked immediately. The deterrence effect will help upholding the professional image of the trade. Last week, there was a survey conducted among social workers. More than 90% of the respondents were concerned that they might be caught on the wrong side of the law. But I don't think the social work profession should be overly worried. As long as social workers work in the interest of the public, without any intent to endanger national security, social workers will not fall on the wrong side of the law. And also, 90% of the respondents consider that the amendment bill will undermine the professional autonomy of the board. However, within the reconstituted board, among the 27 members, there will be at least 14 members who are social workers. So professional autonomy will not be undermined. Now, the chief executive will appoint chairperson and deputy chairperson of the board. Now, by bringing in voices from various sectors into the board, it will enhance the governance of the board, uphold the image of social work profession, and increase the credibility. Now, the duty of social workers are to help different elements in community. They must themselves uphold moral integrity. Now, this is the first step of enhancing the work of the Social Workers Registration Board. In the future, this will help ensure the long-term development of the social work profession. I also submit to support the bill. Mr. Michael Look. President, today we have resumed second reading debate of the Social Workers Registration Amendments Bill 2024. As a registered social worker, I give my support to the bill. Many relevant organizations gave their support to the government to amend the Social Workers Registration Ordinance as needed, so as to enhance the ethic of the profession, enhancing the quality of service of the social work profession, and uphold professional autonomy. As a registered social worker, I think it is important to uphold professional autonomy. In the past, the Social Workers Registration Board was hijacked by the opposition camp. Many social workers lamented that the $400 spent on renewing the registration have gone to waste. There were no seminars and training courses offered by the board. the functions of the board were not discharged, and many social workers who wanted to serve the community were ashamed. How can we tell our counterparts in the mainland that our social service is of high quality in Hong Kong? Now, as a social worker, let me share my insights on the guideline. Now, the first part of the guideline is the mission of social workers. The first mission of the social work profession is to help individuals to overcome their issues and respect the individual uniqueness of various individuals, fulfill their potential, and uphold human rights and social justice. We must make use of our professional knowledge to promote individual and societal progress. It's a shame that in 2019, some social workers betrayed these basic missions and principles. They engaged in radical and unlawful behaviors. They radicalized the community and indulge attacks on people holding opposite views. They did not respect the rights and views of those holding opposite views. They even engage in misinformation campaigns and incitement behaviors. Now, previously, despite minority opposition, the majority members of the board still supported appointing a person being charged with writing offense to the disciplinary committee panel. Now, some members made the excuse on presumption of innocence. Now, this is a principle adopted by the court on criminal proceedings. Now, for important public bodies like the EOC and the board, they should have adopted the civil proceeding principle of balancing of probability. Now, on appointing members to the disciplinary committee panel, there was a clear conflict of interest. Now, we all understand that if it was not offenses like riot, but rather sexual offenses, which no one could accept, then would the members still premise the decision on presumption of innocence? Now, among the 27,000 strong social workers industry, were there no one who was more suitable to be appointed to the position? Previously, there was a newspaper report that a member refused to discuss on establishing a mechanism for safeguarding national security on the excuse that there are other urgent matters to discuss. But what can be more important than national security? Is the Social Workers Registration Board's agenda so packed that there is no room for discussing the implementation of a mechanism to safeguard national security? Now, the board has neglected its duty and the interests of the profession and the community as a whole. These highlights the necessity to amend the Social Workers Registration Ordinance. We must rectify the situation. Social workers enjoy high standing in society, and there is high expectation on them. They have the trust of their clients, and they are allocated with significant resources. We must enhance the governance of the board. The amendments include enhancing the composition of the board and promoting diversification, and also the bill specifies clearly the time frame for appointing members to the disciplinary committee panel and other panels, and also empowering the board to make decisions on CPD requirements. These are important measures to rectify the situation. All board members are required to take an oath. It highlights the importance of the board. Taking an oath is a reasonable requirement for board members. President, to uphold professional autonomy of the social work profession, we must continue to develop the trade rather than allowing a small group of people to pretend to be upholding professional autonomy while actually seeking their own interests. Now, in order to work together with the trade and those in need, we must continue to train up social workers. Now, we must focus on enhancing the professional knowledge of social workers. More training and exchange should be organized. A flexible, continuing professional development mechanism should be established. There should be closer exchanges with the counterparts in the mainland, so that the social work profession can contribute to the modernization of the country. I support the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024.
Mr. Govt. Thank you, President. I need to declare that I am a registered social worker, and I have been so registered since year 2000. I speak in support of the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024. Now, simply put, what we're doing is to right the wrong. Through this amendment bill, we address issues. The board has been hijacked by elements politicizing the issues. Now, the Secretary already explained the five sins, or the 5 offenses. The then Secretary for Labor and Welfare published a notice that Social Workers Registration Ordinance Amendment of Schedule 2, Notice 2022, to incorporate an offense endangering national security in Schedule 2 of the ordinance, so that a person so convicted of this offense will be prevented from being registered as a social worker. Second offense. For ex-offenders of the offenses mentioned, they will be barred from renewing their registration as social workers. Third offense, the board approved a member who was convicted of a writing charge to be a reserve member of the disciplinary committee panel. The fourth offense relates to breach of the law, and then the fifth offense relates to the board calling a halt to the voluntary CPD scheme for registered social workers. Apart from the 5 offenses, I also noticed some opinion surveys in the community tarnishing the amendment bill. One of the questions goes like this: do you think that this amendment bill improves the registration mechanism? Can it safeguard national security and protect public interest more effectively? Now, the question itself is entirely correct. However, 93% of respondents answered no to the question. That is because the majority of respondents are still politicizing the issues without having the best interest of the public in mind. The other point is, we've noticed board members stepping down, resigning from their positions. It's hard to impute a motive on those stepping down, but it is not hard to imagine that these board members have had the same consideration as those engaged in mutual destruction in 2019, and that is to say, they refused to take the board member oath. It is exactly because these people are unwilling to mend their ways that the amendment bill should be passed so that we can put things right again. The object of the bill is to enhance governance of the board to make sure that the board acts in the interest of the public and promote the societal progress and professional development of the sector. We must emphasize two things: professional status and credibility. According to Article 3.2 and 6.1 of the National Security Law, it is the duty of the Hong Kong SAR and every person in the region to safeguard national security. Article 8(3) of the Hong Kong NSL provides that if a person is given any duty by the region, then the duty is to be construed as safeguarding national security, and that covers the board as well. Now, the amendment bill entails expansion of the board, and despite increase in the number of members, over half of them will remain registered social workers. And the board will be empowered to remove the name of RSWs who are convicted of the specified offences. There is also an amendment in relation to the date of commencement of the term of office, the empowering the board to set CPD requirements for the profession, as well as the oath-taking requirement on all board members. I believe the amendment bill to be moderate. The only purpose is to put things right. We are not going after the offenders who breached the law in the past. However, we should also take a serious look at any law-breaking behavior. And I'd like to thank members of the Bills Committee for making suggestions on committee stage amendments, such as the chairperson and deputy chairperson being appointed by the chief executive, the oath to be taken before the Secretary for Labour and Welfare or a person so authorized to administer the oath, as well as scrapping the escape clause. I think for those who have undertaken the social work courses, they would have heard this. They would often come across the common refrain that it's pointless to pay the $400 for the for the fee of the registration board. Now, despite these problems, the administration has decided not to scrap the board altogether. Instead, the board should be reconstituted for the purpose of maintaining the board as a partner for societal growth. At the same time, we do have a good number of social workers in the profession that are not only serving for politics. I hope that they can be more active in safeguarding the profession. Now, the term of office of the board will come to an end by the end of this year. By then, we hope that the board could make a fresh start for the best interests of society. Does any other member wish to speak? If not, I will invite the Secretary for Labour and Welfare to reply. Then the debate will come to a close. Secretary, today we resume the second reading of the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024. I'd like to thank Mr. Gary Chan, Chair of the Bills Committee, and other members of the committee for their efficient and quality scrutiny of the bill. I'd also like to thank the Electoral Secretariat for their endless support, which has enabled the scrutiny work to be completed smoothly. I'd also like to thank 23 members for their views expressed during the resumption debate. And I'm pleased to learn that all members who have spoken are in unanimous support for the bill. The administration is highly concerned about the Social Workers Registration Board's conduct and decisions in recent years, which have seriously deviated from the spirit of the Social Workers Registration Ordinance in the areas of social worker registrations, disciplinary control, and professional development. It considers that there is an urgent need to improve the governance of the board so that it can more effectively protect public interest, safeguard national security, and promote orderly development of the social work profession. The bill seeks to amend the Social Workers Registration Ordinance, Cap 505, which includes the following amendments. First, expansion of membership of the board. We propose to increase the number of board members from 15 to 27. Registered social workers, or RSWs, will take up over half of the reconstituted board. That means at least 14 out of the 27 members are registered social workers. The appointment of RSWs by the government would complement board members returned by election among RSWs in terms of their background and position, including university professors, to ensure that different voices within the social work profession will be brought into the board and reflected in its decisions. Appointing more members from other professions and prominent personalities from different sectors of the community would bring in a broader and more balanced participation in the board to provide the checks and balance required for ensuring that public interests are safeguarded. Mechanism for prompt removal of RSWs convicted of specified serious offences. We propose to empower the board to promptly initiate the deregistration of an RSW who has been convicted of certain offences. There are two categories. The first category refers to offences specified in Schedule 2 of the Ordinance, including murder, sex crime, child abuse, and national security offences. The board must direct the removal of an RSW's name from the register permanently if this person has been convicted of such an offence, unless all members of the board resolve otherwise. In light of the Bills Committee's views on this provision, the government will propose an amendment, and I will explain it in due course. The second category refers to the conviction of an offence that may bring the profession of social work into disrepute and is punishable with imprisonment, regardless of whether this person is sentenced to imprisonment. The board is empowered to direct the removal of an RSW's name from the register permanently or for such period not exceeding 5 years as the board thinks fit. I want to emphasize that the government does not take a broad brush approach in barring any offenders from becoming social workers, but given that social workers shoulder social responsibilities, we consider that the board needs to strike a proper balance between the interests of individual applicants for registration and public interest and promptly process applications for registration involving serious offences. 3. Clarification of effective dates of Code of Practice for registered social workers and disciplinary committee panel appointment. The bill will lend clarity to the effective dates of the Code of Practice and the appointment to the Disciplinary Committee panel, which will be the date on which the Secretary for Labour and Welfare publishes notice in the Gazette. This will enable the Secretary to better perform his gatekeeping role. 4. Setting CPD requirements for the social work profession. The bill empowers the board to set continuing professional development CPD requirements for the social work profession to ensure that the profession can meet the changing service needs and continue to serve the best interests of the needy, while promoting the long-term and sustainable development of the social work profession. The amendment involves an enabling provision. The content, approach, and timetable of the future CPD requirements will be devised by the board, the majority of which will be registered social workers. I believe that the board will consult the sector in taking forward the work on this front in a pragmatic and orderly manner. E. Introduction of oath-taking requirement. All board members elected or appointed must sign and return a written oath before the assumption of office, affirming that they will uphold the basic law and bear allegiance to the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region of the People's Republic of China. A person must not take up the office or continue to hold the office as a member of the board if he or she declines or neglects to take the oath, or if the Secretary for Labour and Welfare is satisfied that the person does not genuinely and truthfully take the oath. In addition, the breach of the oath will be a valid ground for the Chief Executive to declare a board member's office to be vacant. The Bills Committee has conducted in-depth deliberations on the provisions and given a lot of invaluable views. Upon careful consideration, the administration has agreed to adopt members' suggestions. We are going to move the following amendments. 1. Members consider as chairperson is responsible for supervising the board and presiding at its meetings. The chairperson and their deputy should be appointed by the chief executive to ensure that the board performs its statutory functions in a fair and impartial manner. The administration accepts the view and proposes to empower the chief executive to appoint the chairperson and deputy chairperson of the board. Second, members have expressed grave concern that the use of a written oath will make it difficult to ascertain whether the oath taker has engaged in misconduct by means of conduct, words, attire, or paraphernalia, and whether the oath taker genuinely and truthfully intends to uphold the basic law and bear allegiance to the Hong Kong SAR. Members have suggested altering the format of oath-taking such that a board member will be required to take the board member oath under the administration of a government official. The administration accepts this suggestion and proposes to alter the format from a written oath to an oath taken before the secretary or a person authorized by the secretary to administer the oath. 3. Members consider that given the nature of a national security offence is different from that of other Schedule 2 offences, a person convicted of a national security offence should not be allowed to be registered as an RSW or continue to be one, even with the unanimous support of the board. The administration accepts members' suggestion to carve out an offence endangering national security from Schedule 2 to the ordinance and move it to the new Schedule 2A. In other words, if a registered social worker is convicted of an offence endangering national security, the board must immediately initiate the mechanism and direct that the name of the RSW be removed from the register permanently. We will also move some technical amendments to the bill. I will further explain them at the committee stage. The administration will publish the bill, if passed, in the Gazette this Friday, that is the 5th of July, for it to be immediately effective. We will also arrange the oath-taking ceremony for all incumbent and new appointed members as soon as possible. We expect the reconstituted board to kickstart its work on 4 fronts. 1. Establish a mechanism to ensure prompt and appropriate handling of RSWs convicted of offences endangering national security and other serious offences. 2. Review the list of DCP. 3. Review the code of practice for registered social workers. 4. Draw up a framework for CPD requirements of the social work profession. President, social workers bear great responsibilities. A concerted effort is necessary to support the continuous and orderly development of the profession. I'm happy to see the overwhelming support of the bill, so that we can enhance the governance of the Social Workers Registration Board and put the development of the profession back on the right track. Adhering to the spirit of the ordinance, the social work profession will have the overall social interest as their priority at all times, which will safeguard and enhance the professionalism and credibility of social workers for the public. I urge members to support and pass the bill. President, I so submit.
I now put the question to you that the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024 be read the second time. Will those in favor please raise your hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I believe that the question is agreed by majority of the members present. I declare the motion passed. Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024. This council now becomes Committee of the Whole Council to consider the Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill 2024.